How can we tell the difference between an away from and a forward motivation? What are they even, and why are they important? Why are we paying attention to this in our world? And is a forward motivation actually really that important? Do we want to be moving towards stuff, or is it just important to just deal with things as they come up and deal with pain as it comes up? Tune in to find out.
You're listening to the Intuitive Mastery podcast. Hi, I'm kateconnolly, and with over 15 years of intuitive healing and teaching experience, I'm here to help you celebrate intuition and value authenticity to create a world where you have the freedom to live your best life. This podcast is here to teach you how to apply the principles of spirituality, healing, and mindset to have true and lasting joy, all from the inside out. This is the Intuitive Mastery podcast.
Hi, and welcome to this podcast. Today, I am talking about the concept of being Mack Trucked and what forward motivation versus away from motivation looks like and why they are different and how you can do it differently. It's so nice to see you here. It's been a few weeks since I've done a podcast recording. I have moved interstate. It's been really full on, and I'm just excited to get back into it and keep chatting with you guys. I have this amazing intuitive mastery school, and this intuitive mastery school is here for people who want a spiritual upgrade, if they want healing, if they want changes to happen in their lives, if they're in a place where they want community, connection, and information so that their spiritual journey isn't so isolating. I'm here for you. We have a beautiful community of like-minded individuals. We connect in every week online, so you get connection with me every single week live. And we workshop stuff. We workshop life. We workshop intuition. We workshop relationships. We workshop a whole bunch of different stuff. And I have literally hundreds of classes and recordings and meditations to help you on your spiritual journey. If you are interested, I have 2 weeks free, and it only costs $10 a week after that. Click on the link below and come and join us if you're really interested. I've also got a book called The Intuitive Heart Revolution. And it basically outlines a lot of the basics, right? How to actually do a step-by-step guide through working through your spiritual knowing, through your consciousness. And there's so many different healing processes in there as well, if you are interested. So today I'm really excited to talk to you about this because I've just been struck a lot at the moment by people who are either in an away from state or going into a towards state. All right. And they're two different things. So most Mack trucks happen when you are in a state where the world has absolutely smacked you down, but it doesn't start there. You don't just suddenly, out of the blue, for no particular reason. It happens very rarely, but I'll explain to you that it doesn't really happen that much. You know, it might be a car accident, it might be an illness, it might be a massive, money disaster. Something will happen, right? But it almost never happens without some level of warning. And I'll explain to you what that means. So most people who come to see me in my clinic are coming from a Mack trucking event or are trying to avoid a Mack trucking event, okay? And by a Mack trucking event, like I said, it's something that just inextricably changes your life. You have to make a change. You have to make a move into a different direction, okay? They usually happen when you have been ignoring your intuition and the universe for quite a while, and you haven't listened to the cues, right? So your subconscious mind, your intuition, and the universe all band together to start talking to you about things that aren't working in your life, right? It's usually something really small. This is usually called, in my opinion, I call it the feather, right? The feather is, hey, this isn't working for you. It might be you get a funny feeling when your partner tells you they love you. You might get a small stomach ache when you work too much. You might get a headache if you haven't eaten properly. Or you might feel a bit of dread when you go to your weekly business meeting. Like, they're just small things. They're just this tiny awareness that something is uncomfortable, right? It's not massive. It's not going to stop you in your tracks. It very rarely makes you change course, but it's there. It's there nonetheless. So if there's anything in your life that has this tiny clue that it's not quite working, that is the feather, okay? The universe, your intuition, your guidance, they are connecting and giving you information so that you can change course. Now, I don't know many, if any, people who change course based on the feather. Some people do. I think it's amazing, right? But, it's not very often that people do. When you are stuck with something like the feather, it can often only take a small conversation or a clarification of something or a quick tune into something that might not quite be right. The weekly meeting might not be right because, you never have enough food to eat before then. Or it might be that there's a particular colleague in there that makes you feel uncomfortable and you probably need to have a conversation with that colleague, right? It could be something really small, right? But if you don't listen to the feather, right, the universe will speak to you a little louder with a baseball. I call it the baseball, right? It's, the receipt that your partner accidentally left with 2 meals on it instead of 1, right? And he makes up strange stories about who was there, right? The business meeting that indicates a merger is happening in your company, including the removal of your job, but doesn't say anything conclusive, right? The stomach pain that turns into irritable bowel syndrome. All of those are baseballs, right? We've had the feathers. We didn't listen. Now we've got the baseballs, right? The baseballs are okay, she's not listening. He's not listening. They're not listening. We need to go a little bit harder here. Let's just see if we can create a bigger conversation. Why does this happen? Number one, right? It's a course correction. It's always about a course correction. And the course correction is us on our spiritual journey, but also our life journey. So if I need to learn, for example, how to stand up for myself and how to have boundaries, if that's my lesson, if that's what I need to be learning in this lifetime, the feather will indicate something along those lines. Right? So again, it could be that weekly business meeting where I've got like a colleague that's being a little bit disrespectful. And that just makes me feel really dreading to go there. And I don't really want to be around this particular colleague, right? If I am not holding my boundaries and if I'm not having a conversation with that colleague in the first instance, then I haven't course corrected. I haven't gone into a place where I'm actually doing better and I haven't shifted that vibration within my being. If I haven't shifted that vibration, the universe needs to speak to me with the baseball. So again, that might be a threat of the job, or it might be, a complaint made against you at that company or whatever it might be. And again, this is a call up to you to course correct. All right. This is a call from the universe and your intuition to say, hey, we're still not there. Can we try this again, please? Right? Now, we always have a choice. We have free will and choice. We can choose to learn this, shift this, and move forward, or we can choose to ignore it and keep going. Okay? So if we choose to address it, there's probably going to be a slightly bigger issue to deal with. For example, I've had a complaint against me. Oh my goodness, what is that about? I'm going to really have to work through this concept of boundaries and really, start to, log conversations or whatever it might be. And actually, I'm going to have to defend myself at this point because this isn't okay. It's still doable. It's still fixable. We still have a course correction here, all right, which is really, really important, okay? Now, we can choose to do that and enter the discomfort, lean into the problem, and heal ourselves as we go, which is exactly why it's presented itself to us. Or we can not, right? So it's really, really easy to ignore it. Ignoring is the easiest thing that we as humans do. But what happens when we ignore it? We go into a place of denial. Denial is fantastic in the short term. I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen at work and I'm going to go home and watch Netflix for 3 days on sick leave. And then I'm going to come back and hope that it's all gone away and everyone's going to be nice to me again, All right. These things just never resolve that way, right? They just never, ever do. I wish that was true. It just doesn't. Okay. But what will happen is if you do the Netflix thing, or if you do the ignoring thing and you choose not to address it, you will get a Mack truck at some point. There's usually a few levels of this. So it usually feels like it's, a feather and then a baseball, and then you've got the full baseball bat with something that's even bigger. And then you've got like the big event, right? The big event is the Mack trucking. Now, I've never, ever looked back on a Mack trucking event in my life, and I've had quite a few, and not seen the signs beforehand. From a hindsight perspective, I can always look back and see them. And even I remember I've been Mack trucked a couple of times, and I've sort of known, I've sort of known it was coming, and I just let it happen anyway, right? Because I was just in absolute denial and resistance against change. But when these Mack trucks happen, you literally have no choice but to change everything, right? So I'll give you an example. One of my examples was, I remember quite a while ago, one of my meditation teachers, or my main teacher at the time, she was telling me that I needed to do a bit of a clean out in my home. And I kind of sort of knew it. I had a lot of junk. I just didn't really need it. We had a massive 4-bedroom house that was literally cluttered, like from one end to the other. It wasn't messy, but we just had a lot of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I know. I'll get to that. I'll get to that. And I didn't. The house started to have a lot of problems. There were a lot of mold issues. There was like, starting to it was a really old house. There were holes like in the walls and the ceiling and the floors, and there was mold everywhere. And it was just really not very nice. And I ignored it. I did try and address it with the owner, but the owner was MIA. That's a whole other story. And it literally never got resolved. And then it ended up where we had a massive hailstorm smack onto the roof, and then we had this malignant mold that literally just traveled everywhere in our home. And this process probably happened over, I'm going to say 6 to 9 months, roughly. And I loved that home. I absolutely did not want to leave. It was my most favorite home that I ever lived in Sydney. I felt completely and totally at home there. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. It just felt like my place. And one of my daughters, who really feels stuff like I do, she said the same thing. She said, no, this is our home. I don't want to go anywhere. And we were just renting it. And then this massive Mack trucking event happened, and we literally lost everything. We left that house with the clothes on our back and nothing else. This was a complete and total annihilation of everything that we owned. And we are talking, I had, medical records from my young children, like their little blue books that we have in Australia, they were destroyed. I had like antique and Anne of Green Gables books from my deceased aunt wrecked. We had art that was wrecked. Like, it was just phenomenal how much stuff that we lost. We just literally lost everything. And we were then homeless. We literally didn't have anywhere to go. And the moral of the story is, and this happened quite a number of years ago, the moral of the story is, I knew. I could see it coming. I could see the feather. I could see the baseball. I could see the baseball bat. I could see the Mack truck. And I still did nothing because I was so reluctant to leave this beautiful location. And it was a beautiful location. I still miss it to this day. But my guides were telling me, this is not healthy for you. This is not good for you. I had really big health reactions to the mold, which still continues to this day. I'm still cleaning it out of my system. But I also lived in another moldy house. That's a whole nother story. But my whole nervous system and my immune system just crashed because I just couldn't handle the level of toxin in the household. So you could have called that the baseball bat section. I'm not really sure, but the point is, ultimately, I knew it was coming. I didn't want it to come, but I also did nothing about it either. And I waited until I had literally no choice but to make a dramatic change to my life. And everything had to dramatically change, obviously. You lose your home, you lose all of your possessions. That's a pretty dramatic change. So I usually see people when they come into my clinic at around the baseball bat-ish, sometimes Mack Truck. Okay. Not always, but often. And those people are trying to get away from pain. They are trying to get away from those conversations that are happening, right? I'm trying to get away from my stomach pain. I'm trying to get away from that scary person at work. I'm trying to get away from the symptoms, the signs, the pains, the frustration. Okay, that is an away from emotion. Now, 90% of people that enter care, any kind of care, energetic care, health care, alternative therapy care, 90 to 99% are in an away from state, right? I have pain of some kind and I need to get out of it. And when we come in with that intention, can we help? Absolutely. Can we help people move out of their pain? Absolutely. Is it permanent? It's often not, right? But why? Why isn't it permanent? The main reason for a lot of people is that we are trying to get away from something rather than trying to find the cause, heal the cause, and then move into what we want instead. All right. If I'm just trying to get away from my sore stomach because I feel this nausea before my weekly work meeting, I could take all the antacids I like. It's not going to fix it. Right. I could go and do a special diet that might help with some potential inflammation in my digestive system, and that will help. Will it fix the problem? No, because the problem is not my digestion. The problem is the dread and the lack of boundaries with this colleague, right? If I can learn exactly what it is that's creating this problem, i.e., the dread about spending time with this colleague, then I can gain the tools on how to A, fix it, but B, learn and grow from the issue that I might have with boundaries. And then as I step into this place, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have boundary issues everywhere in my life, which is usually the case, right? We never have an issue just in one area. It's usually in most areas. It's not always true, but it's mostly true. I need to work on all of my boundaries everywhere in my life so that I can actually start to walk forward with a sense of self and a sense of, you know, don't mess with me. Right? This is my boundary. This is my towards motivation. I am now stepping out of, please get me out of pain, and I am stepping into, this is what I want instead. So when we're trying to create something in our lives, when we're trying to move to something, we usually need a towards motivation in order for it to really succeed for us. This is a really long-term like NLP thing where, if you say, I don't want tea, your brain only recognizes I want tea. It doesn't recognize the negation. It doesn't recognize the don't. Okay, this is really key. Anyone who's done NLP knows this, but this is a really important key, right? If I'm saying, I don't want to be sick, I don't want to feel this stomach ache, you are only going to get the resonance of stomach ache, right? It's just how the energy works. If you say instead, I want to have strong, healthy boundaries so I feel healthy and amazing, that is a towards motivation, right? I want to feel amazing. I'm going towards amazing. I want to have healthy boundaries and feel wonderful about myself is a towards motivation, right? And as an amazing, wonderful side effect, my tummy pain goes away. Yay me, right? If we've gotten all the way to the point where we're Mack trucked, we usually need a combination. So we usually need a combination of dealing with the boundary issue, plus we also have to deal with the physical body. Okay. And that's really normal if you've let it go for a really long time. If you catch it early, if you catch it in the feather, it usually switches super quickly and you don't have to do any kind of physical work. But most people don't do that, to be honest. Most people wait. Okay. So when I get people or help people or guide people, because they're really doing it for themselves, when they get to a place where they're out of pain, then we move into, and now where do I want to go? Right? Where am I going in terms of my positive forward motivation in life? What is it that I want to achieve? And then we can start working with it. It is quite amazing how many people, when I ask them when they first come in to see me, what do you want? Most of the time they don't know, right? And if they're coming in, especially in an away from suffering place, right? If they've been suffering for a really long time, they just want to get out of suffering. The only thing they can see is the suffering, and the only thing that they want to focus on is how to get out of it, right? And that's normal, of course. But there's so much more to learning to know about yourself than that, right? Where does intuition come in all of this? Your intuition is the thing that's guiding you at every single step of the way, right? And it's up to us to choose to listen or not, right? We always have an awareness in hindsight from a Mack Truck, all of the little signs that have led us to this point. Now, I do know a couple of people that work from feathers, as in the universe is telling me this, I'm just going to go in this direction, right? Not many. I'm one of them. I know a few of them online. I know a couple in person, but that's it. Everybody else doesn't wait, and that's okay. Oh, sorry, everybody else does wait. But the thing is, if we don't learn how to listen to the feathers, then we're never really giving our intuition the gift of guiding us. And if we don't allow the gift of being guided, then we are very, very often going to be in a level of discomfort and a level of pain, right? Because ultimately our intuition, our guidance is leading us to our highest path, our most joyous path, our most successful path. And every single time we don't allow that to happen, we are going to have a level of feather, baseball, or in the extreme, the Mack Truck, right? And nobody ever wants this. Nobody ever asks for this in a conscious way. But as we get more and more and more aware of ourselves, and we start to notice all of the feathers in our lives, all of the things that aren't quite working, then we are empowered to do something different if we choose. It's a tricky concept sometimes, and it does take practice. Learning how to use your intuition is something that requires practice, but it's also something that just requires awareness as well. So if you now, fingers crossed, have an amazing awareness about the concept of feathers through to Mack Truck, and that all of those are teaching you how to course correct, what you can start doing is becoming aware of them. All right, I want to head in this direction at work. Oh, I'm getting a funny feeling in my tummy. I'm really starting to dread these weekly meetings. I'm going to tune into what that is. I'm just going to ask my intuition what I'm feeling and what's going on. And my intuition is telling me that that particular person isn't safe for me for whatever reason, right? Get curious. What is that about? Why am I feeling like this? You go, oh, actually, they really just push my boundaries a lot. Like I've stated that I don't particularly like people to barge into my office, and yet they barge in 3 times a day. And I actually get a bit frightened because I'm not expecting it, right? And they're not honoring and respecting my boundaries, okay? That's not great for me. And so now when I have to have meetings with this person, I'm feeling a lot of dread because I'm not enjoying it, right? All of that inquiry just takes curiosity, and anybody can do that. Anybody can actually start to get really curious about themselves from the feathers, right? Why do I feel a bit funny? Oh, I feel a bit funny, I think, because of this relationship. Why is this relationship making me upset? Oh, I can see the reasons why this relationship is making me upset. I'm actually going to dive into that, and I'm just going to choose to do it differently. I'm going to, send myself some love around this, right? Because holding boundaries for me is really, really hard. I'm just going to, give myself a little bit of acceptance, a little bit of forgiveness, a little bit of love. And I'm just going to allow myself to be okay with the fact that up until now, I haven't had boundaries. And now I'm going to choose to have some. And I'm going to step well into my discomfort zone to ask that person to please knock before they enter my office. right? Let's say you have this conversation, they start knocking on the door, and all of a sudden you feel extremely empowered. You feel extremely strong about the boundaries that you can hold in place, and that stomach pain goes away. What an amazing way to be. What if we all did this? What if we all listened to the feathers, listened to our intuition, course corrected when necessary, stepping out of our comfort zones to do it, because it's only through discomfort that we grow and shift and change. And then all of a sudden, the universe is not needing to have that conversation with us anymore because we've nailed it. This is how it works. It's actually quite exciting, really, I think. But have a play, have a listen, ask your body, ask your life. Are there feathers that I'm not listening to? Are there baseballs that I'm not paying attention to? Am I about to be Mack Trucked? And how do I avoid it? It's almost always going to require a bit of healing, a change of decision, and a course correction. But honestly, it is better than the Mack Truck. The Mack Truck can be devastating. And if we can avoid the Mack Truck through listening in the first place, how much easier would our lives be? Right? How many massive events would we need to experience in order to create change? Who knows? But I would venture a guess that there'd be far less. I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I said, if you would like to join my Intuitive Mastery School, we would love to have you. There's lots of spots open. We are just opening this up to anyone who's awake, interested, and wanting to have a community for connection and spirituality, and really deeply diving into themselves and their intuition, because this is the key. This is the key to being free. So nice to be here. I'll be back again soon, and we'll tune in next time.